I'm Dorothy Rowe, and the video you're about to watch is a clip from a live webinar. If you enjoy the content of this video, please like and subscribe. I'd love to hear your comments. Thank you. Human beings, this seems to be ingrained in our nature to have this sense of loss, grief, also fear, a lot of times associated with the big transition. And I think one of the reasons that human beings have this is because we have free will. And because we have free will, we are not instinctually always ever aligned with cosmic evolution. All the other things, all the other beings and creatures and expressions of creation are spontaneously aligned with cosmic evolution. They are the pure expressions of cosmic evolution, and they don't have a choice. Right? They just live there like these wonderful flowers that are here by my desk. They're going to live and they're going to die in that pot right there. And their death isn't going to be any more of a thing for them than their life has been. It's just their thing. It's just what they're doing. Whereas because we have free will, our tendency is to diverge sometimes from cosmic will. And so what happens is if cosmic will is moving along at its pace, and the human comes off here like this and goes, no, I'm going to do my own thing over here. Then what happens is this that's happening at some point, the human, it gets absorbed back into the flow of cosmic evolution, because we really can't be away from it for very long. But when we've been a little bit away, sometimes that going away and then being dragged back in, it carries with it a sense of there's a tension. There's always a tension that's associated with being separate from cosmic evolution. And the more we kind of traverse out on our own, the more of a tension is created, right? So if we're staying with cosmic will, then it's just everything is together. But if we get too far away, it's more tension and more tension and more tension. And pretty soon the coming back can actually, especially if the effort and the individual, I think there's some law of physics or something that a thing that starts in a certain direction will continue by its own momentum or something like that. I'm not the physicist, but the physicists probably know that, some law. So what happens is when we diverge, the tendency is that our personal energies and resources start to support that divergence. And so we get kind of a momentum going behind the divergence. And so then what's required to pull back into the cosmic flow is a sort of a counter effect or a counter effort is required to come in and snap that individual back into the cosmic flow. And it's that tension is created between the momentum of moving away from the cosmic flow and the energies that are used to realign with the cosmic flow. The tension between those two can frequently give rise to some experience of discomfort. So what we have in the human collective is layers and layers and layers, like centuries and centuries and centuries of layers of impressions and memory patterns, and lots of different types of ways that people have evolved and developed to handle these situations that are associated with this process where we get away from the cosmic flow and then we have to be pulled back in. And all these impressions and memory patterns of all the times that it was uncomfortable, because it's like the laws of nature that are pulling you off are fighting with the laws of nature that are pulling you back in. And it's a kind of like a battleground. Life becomes a battleground, or your body becomes a battleground where that's happening. And so they're memories of pain or trauma, memories of trauma. And I'm noticing this had come up in the silence at the beginning of our session, that a lot of the memories of the pain and trauma seem to be in the upper area of the physiology, like above the heart area, kind of like upper chest and then up neck, throat, head, and definitely also settled a lot of this particular energetic imbalance is settled in the nervous system. So the upper area of the spine, and then up into the head area. And that makes sense to me because that's also an area where the vagus nerve is running strong. It's coursing strong. It's more like thicker, like it goes through the body. It kind of thins out as it goes into some of the different areas of the different organs of the body. But a blockage there would definitely inhibit the strength or flow of consciousness through the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve is a primary player in the healing process and in the feeling good process. Vagus nerve activation equates with rest and digest and feel comfy. And it's affected the way our physiologies as human beings have formed over the course of centuries. We're talking about evolution, but right now we're talking about a restructuring of the actual form of our bodies in order to better align with cosmic intention and in order to serve the needs of our life and the needs of the universe more effectively. Because we're clearing out memory patterns, impressions, some conditioning. It's mostly looks like a lot of it is happening in the etheric and mental levels of the physiology. A lot of the roots of these imbalances are sitting mental through etheric level of the physiology. And it's interesting. I noticed that the heart area itself, the center of the heart energy center, was not so affected. And that area is actually activating right now to create a quality of light medicine. You could say light medicine, or I would say a flow of heart wisdom. Feels like when I perceive these light medicines, the light is the light of consciousness. So it doesn't necessarily appear as a colored light, but it does appear as knowledge, knowingness. It appears as knowingness. It flows up. It flows. It's the heart. The heart wisdom is, I would say, congealing right in the center of the heart area. And the first thing two first things that are happening. One is it affects the actual beating of the heart, the actual beating of the heart. So the heart beats in a manner which, like, it tells a story, you could say. It tells a story to the rest of the body. The way the heart beats communicates constantly to the whole body how you feel. So the storyline starts to change a little bit to reflect a level of wisdom that wasn't there before. The next, I said two things. The other thing is the thymus, which is the immune system and are representing our ability to self-protect. And the immune system, the thymus is also joining the heart. It's joining in the storytelling. So the thymus and the heart are telling the story together, which is very interesting to me. And honestly, I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't have enough really detailed knowledge about the physiology to tell you exactly what the thymus is doing. Like, I know the heart beats, right? But you know, the thymus's functions are a lot more subtle. But the thymus is, I can tell you what the thymus is doing energetically. And this is happening for all of us. We're doing this together. We're doing this, going through this process together. Thank you for being with me. Discrimination is refining in the thymus. As it refines, there's an expansion of consciousness in the thymus. The ability to, it's so interesting. Remember how I was saying, like, the ginger could like have its own experience of that process, right? like the thymus has its own intelligence, and it has its own neural network, and it has its own ways of perceiving reality. Like our senses we're used to, when I say perception, we're used to immediately thinking about our senses of perception. But every organ in the body perceives in its own unique way. And the thymus is repositioning its point of perspective for perceiving what goes on in the physiology. It's expanding, so broader comprehension, and at the same time, finer discrimination. The immune system has to recognize invaders, but while it's busy looking for invaders, it sees a lot of other stuff. Our immune system see all kinds of things, including pollens, for example. And some people's immune system see pollens and go, oh, there's a cute little pollen. And other people's immune system see a piece of pollen and go, oh, that's an invader right there. I'm going to attack it, right? So everybody's different. Everybody's different. So the thing that's interesting to me is that even though the immune system is sort of designed or geared to deal with invasive energies, it's also designed and geared to perceive all sorts of other things that are not invasive, and it has to tell the difference. And probably most of the things living in our bodies are actually good, right? Like all the gut bacteria and, and other things that are going on in the other functions, proteins and hormones and various other types of materials that are going through our body, food that we particle, nutrients, different things are going on the body. And the immune system basically probably looks at all of it. Interesting, huh? And so this expansion of consciousness and refinement of discrimination is supportive of our bodies utilizing our energy resources more efficiently. This, I would imagine, this healing is very good for anybody who has allergies or immune system disorders of any kind. But the important thing is that this quality that's being brought to the story that's told by the heart and the thymus are talking to the nervous system and the upper area of the nervous system where the vagus nerve is. The story of infinite creativity being a key to recycling all materials in creation, recycling everything because it's adorable, Oh, that's interesting. So the recognition that it's adorable. Now it hits me, right? I needed you guys to be the light here. I'm telling you, the heart realizes the adorableness in all the things that are perceived. The immune system is out there looking. And this is, of course, happening at kind of a molecular level of the physiology, molecular or, cellular level of the physiology, maybe multicellular level of the physiology. But we're doing it inside ourselves first because we upgrade first. And when we upgrade in this way and create a restructuring of our actual physical form, that obviously there are neural connections between the activity of the heart, the activity of the immune system, and there's like some of the governing is done in the brain, right? With the hypothalamus, for example, is monitoring all this stuff. And the pituitary gland is sending out information to the endocrine system, which is also part of the immune system and so forth. There are lots of control center. The control center is up in the brain. So that's all this upgrade of intelligence here between the heart and the thymus is speaking now to the nervous system. It's supporting the elimination of any physical expressions of these impressions and memory patterns. I'm remembering what I said, impressions, memory patterns, conditioning from the past, that anything is not valuable. And you know, when I realized that at a collective level, this translates out into many areas, not just our relationship with Mother Nature and the earth. Of course, it's very important that, you know, it's best if we take an attitude towards Mother Earth, not to be exploitative, but to see the absolute adorableness of every expression of Earth's form, and honor it and cherish it and protect it and so forth. But it also definitely ties into things like crime, like human on human crime. Like, the only reason someone might do something very sort of criminal act on another person is because they don't see the adorableness in that person, right? They miss it. If they miss that that person is adorable, then somehow the exploitative act is justifiable when we extract the adorableness factor. I'm noticing the story is transferring over to the etheric heart, or the sacred heart, sometimes they call it something, the space. There's like an etheric space on the other side of the chest. So now it's like a dual patterning of the energy on both sides of the chest, like that, with the thymus in the middle. And as the spiritual heart picks up the story and starts communicating it all around, resolution to the story arrives. Because the value of the spiritual heart is to provide a kind of a completion to whatever we're feeling. Whenever we're feeling an emotion of any particular type or kind, there's always going to be the antithesis of that emotion. There's always going to be the other side of it. And in order for us not to become completely overwhelmed or gripped or lost in the field of emotional experience, we have a balance point on the other side of the chest to help hold just enough of a balance that we can enjoy and witness whatever the emotional experience that we're going through is. And it doesn't mean that the spiritual heart sees things as not adorable. No, 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 it's not like that. It's that the spiritual heart holds space for the completion of whatever the experience is that's happening. For instance, if I had been too caught up in the idea that that piece of ginger was really adorable, and I confess I've done that. I planted it instead of eating it. It's actually happened. But if I got too caught up, this time I didn't, I was witnessing. But in years past, I used to plant my ginger. It makes flowers, little red flowers. It's very nice. Anyway, okay, digression, sorry. You can cut that out when you put this up as a clip if you want. Anyway, yeah, is that ability to recognize that there are those sacred times, and they are sacred and they are precious and they are also adorable. When the octopus dies, when the flower fades, don't fade yet. They're still really pretty over there. And that is part of the recycling process. Part of the recycling process is the deterioration or the unmanifesting of something, of the manifest forms of this world. And we have to shift around. I think that's what's been missing in human experience, has been, I mean, not entirely missing. I think a lot of us have that integrated to a certain degree, and our ancestors have had it really integrated to a certain degree. Death is this sort of inevitability, you know, it's this inevitable thing. So we have to kind of like move with that and accept it. But there's a lot of conditioning that tells us that even though We accept that death is inevitable, that we have problems with it, and that it hurts, right? That there's pain, emotional, physical, mental pain associated with it. And that somehow something is lost, that somehow something valuable is lost. And I think that illusion is the mother thread in this healing for this thing, is that idea that something is lost. Because when things change in the relative, whatever is deteriorates and dissolved out of the relative field, then it still has a reality in the subtle expressions of creation, the subtle layers of creation. And everything has a reality in the source of creation. But because our Western world has been sort of cultivated and built around relative experience, we have not bothered to follow the trail back as ancestors pass on, or as cultural landmarks are torn down for more modern structures, or whatever, as time passes. I think there's been a lack of that discrimination and seeing, just like remember our thymus and immune system, there's been a lack of sort of following that through to its subtle levels of reality and recognizing that things aren't really lost. They're lost on a relative level, but they're not really lost. I remember when my father passed on, God bless my father, my sweet father, such a sweet man. I felt his personality go up several octaves. That's what it was like. It was like when he was humming here, when he was in his physical body, his personality was here, kind of anchored in the body, and he was, you know, accessible. He was accessible. And when he dropped that body and passed out of it, it's like the personality vibration or frequency speeded up many notches, but it didn't really stop being that personality. It's just that personality at a way faster speed. So it was kind of comforting to know that, and to feel like that level of vibration where the soul is, and know that it's still part of this world, and I can still hear that vibration with my subtle hearing. And so it's not such a really, really a loss. There's a kind of eternal level of self where he always is, I always am. It's very sweet. Okay.